Bleach, the last of what the West has come to call the Big Three. I've covered Naruto and One Piece, and just like those series, Bleach has a unique style all of its own. In fact, its evolution is unique too. There are really two evolutions going on here, and I'll touch more on that in a second, but to preface, Bleach is a manga series by Tite Kubo. It released in Weekly Shonen Jump from August 7, 2001 to August 22, 2016. This was mostly a solid string of releases too, with 686 chapters telling the story of a boy named Ichigo, who would go on to become a Soul Reaper. The background of the manga is modern day Japan with this spirit world. In this world, we end up seeing this more traditional Japanese, or rather folklore-centric landscape. Kubo creates this hierarchy of souls, which is really interesting, and probably the most original part of his story. He says he was inspired by Greek mythology, which makes a lot of sense. In a way, these people are more like gods than they are spirits. And despite a seemingly small-scoped story, he expanded this world in really succinct ways. Not only was he inspired by Greek mythology and Japanese folklore, but when creating the Hollows and Arancars, he gave them Spanish names and lingual tendencies, with the Quincy and Bouncy gave them German ones. The entire story is set where it's set, but everything else the story details gives off the sense of a believable and lived-in world. He was originally going to give the members of the Soul Society guns as weapons, but ended up deciding, as we all know, to give them swords. These swords, or Zanpakuto, are the weaponized manifestation of the Soul Reaper themselves. They take on different forms and portray different real-life weapons: katanas, greatswords, scythes, spears, and lances. There's all sorts of visualities going on to portray this culture. As the world expands, the characters evolve too. Ichigo is the prime example, where his design at the start of the story is boyish, and his face is more rounded, features more soft, and eyes that are low on his face. The chapters go by, and then his face is more chiseled. There's a length to it, with his eyes landing higher on his face, and the nose being given more prominence. It's generally a sign of Kubo gaining skill, but also a stylistic change that really encompassed what the style of the series would take on, and all the better for it in terms of that design evolution. Ulquiorra wouldn't have been half as intimidating without it. This design change has good elements and bad elements. To find the answers to that, the covers tell all. The design of Ichigo on the first volume cover is this youthful design. As we scroll through these covers, we see this new design, and the way in which he draws his characters changes and matures. But also, the actual style of the drawings and the poses, the choreography in which Kubo made his covers, went from something really dynamic into something a lot more watered down. If we take a look at the manga, and this is an issue covered by many different YouTubers now, but the details of the manga, the page count, the hatching, the layout of the chapters themselves, these elements all take a more simplified version of their former selves as the series progresses. It's at this point that I have to address the part which you probably are all aware of, that Tite Kubo struggled with the weekly releases of the series. The evolution of Bleach is unfortunately underpinned by the fact that Kubo was struggling to work under the weekly deadline. The details did diminish without stylistic intent. The evolution would have naturally been different if not for that. On November 17th, 2016, Kubo tweeted an image of a parcel and letter that came to him in the mail. The letter had no return address and no identifying details of the sender in question. Kubo made this post for people to send any identifying information his way. He thanked the fans for their support as the series concluded. The letters he received along the way were a massive source of inspiration for him. 10 years into the production of Bleach, Kubo fell ill, seemingly with a cold, but was left completely unable to recover. From that point on, 10 years in, he thought about ending the series, and wondered whether he could reach that point that he wanted to end it at. At that exact point, he received this letter, a letter from a dying boy. His medicine was no longer working. He was unable to enjoy anything because TV and games reminded him of the times he would usually spend with his friends. As he wrote this letter, he detailed that he learnt his illness was incurable and just wanted to die after that. Being bedridden, he tried to find things that wouldn't remind him of his friends, and wanting to read the next volume of Bleach was the first thing that made the boy think about tomorrow. Then the letter ends with an admission that the boy asked for this letter to be sent after his death. a heart-wrenching illustration of Kubo's reaction to it, as the boy says he wishes for Kubo to finish the manga however he wants it to end, as that's what he would have wanted to read. After some thorough research, this actually happened, by the way. There was a similar story which ended up just being a story for One Piece and Eiichiro Oda, where he told the ending to a dying boy. That ended up being hearsay, but this actually did happen. I looked it up and was saddened to actually find out how real it was. That boy, whoever he was, bless him, was gone by the time Kubo details it. Kubo says it was the biggest source of inspiration for him to finish the series in the way that he wanted, and that's pretty much how we got all that we ended up getting, and not less than that. At the beginning, I mentioned there being 2 evolutions to Bleach, and that's where this comes in. The change in style over time was affected by that which I've just detailed. The finished Bleach we see as a result of it, it almost doesn't represent what Bleach otherwise would have been. And because of that, the evolution of Bleach is there, but it's just one evolution for Kubo. There is a second evolution, and one that would occur many years after the series' end. Burn the Witch was a one-shot turned volume-long project which elusively acted as a direct sequel, extending its world even further. It was released originally as a one-shot, and then expanded with 4 further chapters which gave its own little arc. The line work is so smooth here. It's so nice to read something that was given the time it needed by its author, and this style smoothness here adds to the sense of a shoujo manga with, after all, its 2 female protagonists. The anime is also another evolution that's just so amazing. The Burn the Witch movie really made you sit and think, wow, it's a shame they never gave this— wait, what? The original volume of Burn the Witch was illustrated from 2018 to 2020. We've received word that Kubo is working on a second volume. This is the perfect continuation. Kubo doing what Kubo does best, expanding his world and delivering his best. It really isn't every day we get to see a wholesome end to these Artistic Evolution videos, but with Bleach and with Tite Kubo, ironic to the response of the art at times, I think this is just about as good an ending as you could possibly hope for. Even the anime is better than it's ever been, with some of the best visuals to adapt weekly shonen manga that's ever been put to screen. This has been a really surprisingly nice video to work on, which at first I thought was going to be a daunting and depressing task. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed Kubo's work so much. If you want to see more Artistic Evolutions, take a look on the channel, there's tons. And if you don't find what you're looking for, then let me know, I might even get around to it. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you to everyone watching. Have a wonderful night.